All right, we're almost halfway there.
Halfway?
Well, okay, we're 2/5 of the way done. We're going to do the middle fifth now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right, so you're talking about our board game countdown.
Yeah, so
And
our
we're-
top 50.
And we're not adding any more games to this thing, right?
No, it's top 50. We're doing 30 through 21.
All right. I know how somebody likes to sneak in honorable mentions.
There's no honorable mentions, at least not in this episode. So.
All right, let's roll into our next 10 games on our top 50 games of all time. Welcome to WiscoDice! Hey yo folks, I am your host, Conesy with the most, and I'm joined today by...
Hey, I'm Suzanne.
And guess what? We're back for another 10 games on our top 50 games of all time countdown, going with games 30 through 21 this time. So, hope you've enjoyed the last two. I think we've talked about some great games.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Lots of really great games, and we got a lot of new games between our two lists.
There have been a lot of new games that have not shown up on either of our lists.
Yep.
Considering we play games with each other, it's very interesting how we have very distinct tastes and interests. And these lists are absolutely our top 50s, so they're probably different than what BGG or what you maybe personally feel are your top 50 games. But what should they do if they have something they want to share?
Oh, you should definitely comment. Just comment about what your thoughts are on our list so far, what your top games are, if you've agreed or disagreed with anything on our list. Because this is our ranking from Pub
And while they're down there,
you should definitely
smash
that like button. And also subscribe if you haven't already so you get notified when the next list comes out.
Do it now. Game number 30. We're going to return to our countdown with a little return to old school 80s gaming and return to Dark Tower. Okay, so this has been a modernized version of this game from Restoration Games, but in Return to Dark Tower, you're playing out a fantasy mission as a fantasy character in the Dark Tower world. Ultimately, there's a big villain that's inside this massive electronic tower in the center of the board. And as you take your turn, you're doing actions to thwart enemies and defeat things. Then you have the tension of taking a skull and dropping it into the tower, and who knows what that thing is going to do. It might spit out skulls at you, might spit out skulls at one of your allies, might just rotate, doors open. Maybe it
do nothing.
Restricts, or it could just do nothing, or it could restrict you on making actions more expensive. It does all sorts of things. I love the way the tower adds attention to it. And the biggest thing is, this game for me, I thought it was a gimmick. And so I didn't back it. I didn't support it. I ended up getting introduced to this for basically a gaming weekend with a bunch of friends and fell in love with it. And then we had to go out and buy it. And
We had to go out and buy it? No, you had to go out and buy it.
All right. Well, anyways, we ended up with a copy of it, and it's gotten to the table several times.
It's a lot of fun, and it's one of these app-driven games, so you do have to have, ideally, like a tablet or a computer screen so everyone can see what's going on, but you can play it on your phone for the app.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah. So, my number 30 is, kind of scary and mysterious also. Reeled some tension.
Ooh.
Not that much, but...
Oh, okay.
This is the game that we play, the two of us, and have for quite a while. It's Arkham Horror, the card game, produced by Fantasy Flight Games. And in this one, you are investigators, and you have a little story that you are trying to get to the end of the mystery and, save people. So very similar to, the Arkham Horror board game, but it's the card game version of it. You win every time? Gosh, no. You win...
No, I mean you might win the early scenarios, but by the end, this game just punishes you. It feels like.
Yeah, but I do really enjoy the story aspect of it, and just kind of growing our characters and seeing what's gonna happen. So I really enjoy Arkham Horror, the card game.
The narrative behind this game is really good. Yep. Every mission feels unique. thematic, narrative. You feel very immersed into it.
Yep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so it's definitely a great one to check out.
Game number 29. All right, for game number 29, I have first in the family of Terra Mystica games in this list. Don't worry, there'll be more popping up later. But this one is going to be Gaia Project, and that's from Capstone Games or Feuerlandspiel. Gaia Project is basically the space version of Terra Mystica. It's got some cool mechanics. When it first came out, it felt very different from Terra Mystica, but also still using a lot of the same game engine, the Gaia forming, the way the technology tracks worked.
Upgrading your buildings.
Yeah, upgrading the buildings was the same as the base game, but the base Terra Mystica. But the tech tracks definitely had a major difference. And then the Gaia forming added a major difference, and it was a lot of fun. And we ended up picking this up because Terra Mystica just doesn't play great as a 2-player game, but this one really allowed us to play that game, which
is you love.
Previous top 10 was Terra Mystica was my number 1 game of all time. We'll see where it ranks in this countdown as we get further. But it was hard to play it. It was hard to table it since we couldn't really enjoy it as a 2-player. So, but this allowed us to play the Terra Mystica game as a 2-player, and it was pretty good as a 2-player game.
Yep, it worked just fine as a 2-player game,
So,
and it gave a space theme. So, my number 29 is a space theme game also. This is Capernaum, published by Whitewater Castle. This is a game I stumbled into at Gen Con this last year. I was wandering around the vendor hall as I do, and came across the designer who was promoting his game, and it's a 2-player game with cards that you are playing, and based on what you play, that helps the other player with what actions they can take and movement. So it's kind of a unique bit of deciding what you want to do and allow your opponent to be able to actions and scores for them, and how that will be best for you. And I don't know, it just really caught my attention. I had a blast playing it. It is an attacky game, so you have to be playing with a partner who does not mind being attacked and is not going to give you the silent treatment the rest of the day.
Which I don't know anybody that would do that.
It does not happen in this house.
No, not in this house.
No.
But it is a bit more of an aggressive. I wouldn't necessarily think it's completely a take that game. There's definitely some of that out.
You do.
It's a high level of player interaction.
Yes.
Is the way I would describe it. You're not necessarily. It's not like you're necessarily like a dice thrown where you're attacking somebody. You're doing damage to them, but there's definitely a give and take kind of aggressive play style that but I really like this game, and I don't know why it hasn't gotten to the table as much as I think I am now realizing that you liked it, so we're going to have to get to the table
I
again.
suggested it, but someone likes to play new games a lot too.
Somebody said they had to get all of the games that are still in shrink wrap off of our looking for players table.
I know. But anyway, my number 29 was Capernaum.
Game number 28. All right, game number 28. I am going to go back into the world of civilization building with Tapestry from Stonemaier Games. Tapestry is a fairly simple game to learn, but as I have continued to play it, very difficult for me to master, but still a game I really enjoy.
Those people with that play online are just, I don't know what they do.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly a thing to trick to mastering this, and it's not mine. But yeah, you're advancing. Every turn, you're either advancing on one of 4 different technology tracks that are around the board, and then resolving whatever it is that you moved on to, or you're taking an income turn and restoring all your income, playing a tapestry card, getting a bunch of points. So it's very simple. Like, that's the game. I just talked to you. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Wow, you know how to play the game. Such a interesting kind of way and factor how you move up the different tech tracks and how they kind of play off of each other.
Yeah.
so that you're advancing the civilization. And I get that there are some things that, as far as a civilization game, that don't always make sense. Like, hey, I haven't developed
You can't
writing, but I have tanks and air forces. Like,
or you haven't farmed, but yet you're shooting a rocket into space.
the other thing that's with Tapestry is the monuments are all those huge, large miniature kind of things.
They're cool in person.
I have grown to like them more the more we've played it, but I'll be honest, that was one of the detractors for me for the game when I first saw it.
Yeah.
I just did not, it's not an art style that I was like super into,
Oh,
but the more
love
I've
it.
played it, the more I like them, and the more I think it fits the game.
Yeah, I think they fit the game. I don't know. Tapestry is just, it's a fun game and it looks cool on the table too.
Yeah.
So my number 28 looks cool on the table because I enjoy playing it. So therefore I'm drawn to it. It is Ascension Realms Unraveled, published by Stoneblade Entertainment. And I played several of the Ascension games. I think I own just about everything on the digital versions of it. We did pare our selection of these games down just to my absolute favorite, which was also like the first one that we got because they weren't getting to the table enough. And to me, a lot of the games, the differences in them were just very minute. So if you're not playing them a lot, to me it didn't make sense to have several different versions of it. But in this one, it's a deck building game where you are building up your deck so that you can either buy stronger cards or fight different monsters, and then there is some getting different cards that can kind of chain together well if you're able to get them in your hand at the same time. So I really enjoy deck building games like that. It's, it's just a fun one for me to play, and that would be Ascension's Realms Unraveled.
Yeah, the different factions for Ascension are really cool, and you're acquiring all of these cards, and they're either going to be cards that are different factions or artifact type things, or or there are sometimes monsters that come out and you have to fight them too. So that's kind of cool. I love that kind of thematic. And if you really wanted to get into the Ascension universe, there's a really good kind of, I think, narrative that they've tried to build up between the different Ascension games and the different factions and how that's evolved throughout.
Yeah, it is really cool. But like we're at a point where I've got that, but for us to play.
Yeah, Unraveled is definitely our favorite.
It's my favorite too because it's my number 28.
Game number 27. For game number 27, we're gonna pick not a super new, but it's a newer Euro-ish game, and that game is Kutna-Hora, the City of Silver from CGE. So Kutna-Hora is a game that we both spotted a couple of Gen Cons ago, wasn't it? Yeah. And we didn't know this game was coming out. This wasn't on our radar. It didn't show up on any of our.
I've seen it, but it didn't look all that exciting.
Yeah. Then that's the thing.
It's a black box.
This game is very deceptive. It's dark. But it's got great graphic design too at the same time. But it's a very simple color palette for the design. The big thing that kind of stands out is the way these market boards work. So there's cards, and they're all ordered. So they're always ordered in the same order. And then they have sliders on the track. So as you're building out the mines or the city or whatever those things, the market continues to advance.
It fluctuates.
So
if something is higher, if there's more plentiful, then it's worth less.
Exactly. If you're producing way more food than there's people, and food's really cheap. But if you go too far in the mines, all of a sudden maybe coal or silver or whatever goes down. It's
really cool.
Yeah, I really like that. I really enjoyed it. We've played it a bunch of times.
Yep.
And we'll definitely continue to get this one back to the table. I see it getting back to the table easily on a yearly basis.
Mine, 27, is in the Terraforming Mars universe, but it is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, published by Stronghold Games. And this one made my list because, I love Terraforming Mars. It is not for everyone, and it can take a little bit longer. So the Ares Expedition gives you the feel of Terraforming Mars, but simplifies it in that you have your cards, and based on what cards you'll play, those are the different types of actions, colors that are going to activate. Kind of just building out your tableau in front of you. The Mars planet that you are terraforming is much smaller on the board and everything. So you're still bringing up your temperature and your water and all that stuff that you get from Terraforming Mars. There's a lot more simultaneous play. It's a bit quicker, and it's kind of I look at it as a condensed version of Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, I like the action selection for this.
You do.
So it's where everybody's selecting that action, and then you reveal and find out which actions actually get triggered. And everybody gets to do it. You just get a little bit better version of that action
if you
selected it, which is neat. It's that same kind of role for the Galaxy action selection system, which is very popular in
and
our
Raising
gaming groups.
Robots has that same action selection. Like, there's a lot of games that have this way of helping with simultaneous play and getting some variety.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Game number 26. Game number 26. We're gonna call all of our friends, a bunch of fracking toasters, in Battlestar Galactica, the board game from Fantasy Flight Games. This is a super classic board game that has been redone by Fantasy Flight as in a mythos theme in Unfathomable, which I haven't played yet, but we own it. Actually, I think that is not on the Looking for Players table.
One more to the list.
Yeah, one more to the list. But in Battlestar Galactica, you're going to take on roles of all of the classic characters from the sci-fi version of Battlestar Galactica. Obviously, all as a group having to take actions each turn, and then you have to, as a group, defeat some challenge. And of course, there are hidden roles, so some of the people may start the game as Cylon players, but as you progress through the game, everybody will get a second loyalty card about halfway through the game. And so your loyalty might start out as, hey, I thought I was a human, and all of a sudden, ha-ha, no, you're actually a Cylon. And these loyalty cards are all secret, so you're at the table making accusations. Who rigged that one? Who threw in that card to fail that challenge? That kind of thing. And you have a bunch of resource tracks. It's a very difficult game to win if you were all cooperative, and then you throw in the aspect of some players maybe on the Cylon side trying to tip it over the edge for you. I just love it. It all needs the right set of players at the table, but it's always fun with the way the accusations fly, and but there's still plenty of board game for those of you that are less social deduction type players to really focus in on the board game, and the board game part can be very challenging as well.
This is a game I have yet to play, but I love Battlestar Galactica, the TV show, so I think I need to try it, and maybe it'll make my list. But my number 26 is a game also that you should play with friends or enemies or whoever, just a group of people. It is one of the few party games that are on my list. It is Caution Signs, published by Wacky Wizard Games. This is a game they gave to us to review and try out, and I had not really heard of it, and I'm not usually a party game person.
Right.
But oh my gosh, I love this game. I have played it with my family at some holiday gatherings.
You did?
So
Yeah, we did.
Played it with nieces that, are under 10 all the way up to my parents. We've played it here with friends. And so you think of the caution road signs, those yellow ones, and you take a top half and a bottom half card, and everyone looks at them at the same time. There are two cards that they picked, and they need to then draw these two ones, usually an adjective and then a noun. And you have, I think, 30 seconds to draw it on a dry erase board. It's very quick. And then you're trying to draw it, and after you draw it, everyone puts their cards in the middle, and whoever is the guesser for that turn takes a couple extras and mixes everything up, and then they have to try and name all of these drawings people have made. So you may have a wacky duck, or an angry grandpa, or a floating hippo, or something that just completely silly. You do not have to be a good artist for this, I think, because you have to draw so quickly. You just got to get the message across. I am not an artist, but I don't do too bad. People seem to get what I'm trying to draw. You've only played it a couple times.
We've played it a few times, and I think it's went over really well with everybody that's played it. I think this is a really cool little nice take on taking one of the those word games and then blending it with a Pictionary engine into what is really a quite fun little tabletop experience in a small little box package.
Right.
Really neat game, and we do have to thank the publisher for giving us a review copy.
Yep, so that is Caution Signs by Wacky Wizard Games.
Game number 25! Alright, game number 25. I've got another Uwe Rosenberg game. That is Hallertau from publisher Lookout Games. Now, Hallertau is one of those Uwe Rosenberg games that I feel like not a lot of people talk about as much as I think the game deserves. And it gets a little bit hidden beneath the Cavernas and Agricolas and Feast for Odin with all of his other titles that he's worked on and published. But I really, really like this one. It's got a lot of phases, but there's really only 2 or 3 phases where most of the game happens. Otherwise, it's just kind of setting up things, advancing things.
It's just another way of saying, here are the steps.
Yeah,
they just call
procedural steps.
Phases.
You're basically in this region trying to grow various ingredients for the brewing of beer, I believe, if I remember right. And the Hallertau is a famous region, I believe, in Germany, if I remember right. So you're kind of there in one of those small towns, kind of building up your town hall, and that's advancing, and it's kind of this cool, it's got a little window in it, and you're kind of like, that's how many workers you get per turn to place on the board for worker placement actions. And then the worker placement actions, only some of the workers come off the board each round, so some of them still sit there, and then you have to basically, you can play, if there are 2 workers there, you have to play 3 workers to take that action. So it's a real interesting kind of mechanism now, and I think it caps at 3. You have 3 workers per action spot, so you can't place more than 3 on a spot, I think. There's a lot of common feels for other Euro-y, Uwe Rosenberg games that you can, I think people that are familiar with
you can catch
those
on.
Other games catch on really quick, the symbolism, iconography, but it's still like this big, meaty, thinky game that I really appreciate and really enjoy. But that is Hallertau from Lookout Games.
Yeah, so my number 25 is a game that I've only played as a 2-player. It's Gloomhaven. Yeah, so Gloomhaven, published by Souffleur Games. So this is one that Conesy and I played together.
Yes.
And we had gotten it packed up because we needed the gaming table space, I think, and we were just, our characters that we had upgraded to or changed we hadn't quite figured out how to make them mesh yet.
Yeah.
So it was a little frustrating, but this is another one where I really enjoy the story that you are, adventuring and going through Gloomhaven and the surrounding areas, and that you are doing things to level up your character as you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a giant box that I don't think I can actually get off the top shelf myself safely right now because it's up way higher than I am. But it is one that we do need to finish. We're probably about halfway.
We're about 30 or 35 plays into it, I think.
Which is, I mean, it takes anywhere between 30 and 100 plays to finish it.
It depends on if you want to do all the side quests, right? Because there's 100 different quests in the box. So you're not, and obviously, depending on what you select, some of those quests will get locked out, so you can't do them.
Yep.
But let's say it's probably, if you played everything in the Gloomhaven box, it's probably about 100 plays.
Yeah. So I am excited to finish it. I really enjoy the game.
It's number 24. All right, well, this one's going to come in with a roar, and that is Dinogenics from Ninth Haven Games. Dinogenics is another one of those classic Dinosaur Park games. This one has a lot of feels, and it feels to me like it took inspiration from another one of my games that I really enjoy but didn't quite make this list, and that's Lords of Waterdeep. Basically, on a turn, you're placing a worker on the board, and then you resolve the action spot and get some resources. One of the resources that are key in this game are cards. They're DNA cards, and those DNA cards are basically set collection. If you have, say, you need 3, I think it's 2, or actually I think it's 2 Triceratops cards to add a Triceratops to your card. And then there's another action spot where you can go and place a worker, and then just spend those cards to be able to put a Triceratops in your park.
Yeah.
And then there's also like one of the other mechanisms I really like about this game that makes it stand out from other dinosaur park games is the fact that you have to feed your carnivores. So there's an action spot where you can go get goats, and yes, you can feel terrible about having to feed your goats to your carnivores if you want, but it just brings back that moment in like Jurassic Park when they're lowering the poor goat or whatever into the raptor cage, and like that was part of the film. Like that was part of what made that film feel more real. And so here you have that in this board game as well. And then the art for the board game is probably the most serious looking of the dinosaur park games that we own, right? Because it's a heavy bluish theme to a lot of the board and the art and whatnot. So it looks more like, hey, I'm a serious dinosaur park. They were serious about building this dinosaur park.
Yep. So that is a game I really enjoy, but my corresponding game on the list is Barcelona, and this is one of the board and dice games that I absolutely love. And I have enjoyed this so much. I think I've taught it at almost every convention I went to in the last year or so.
Yeah, I think so.
On this one, you are building up and reviving the city of Barcelona. There's the different architect visions for this city that you are kind of gearing towards, and there's a track that, you're going to do multipliers on the end round, kind of scoring points. You have your citizens or pedestrians that you are placing on the board in different intersections, this city map, and you can build buildings and increase them and make them, larger and more glamorous and increase other aspects of your city. So it's the really unique thing with this one is depending on where you place your pedestrians that you have on the board, it's going to dictate which 2 or potentially 3 different action spots you are going to activate. So you lay it out, it looks complex, but really there's a handful of actions that you can take, and once you know what those are, it's a very streamlined, smooth feeling game, I feel. And you're just deciding what you want to do and where you want to focus. You do not have to focus on the same areas like building roads as your opponents do. You actually don't want to, because then you can focus on the way that you want to earn points and everything. So I just have really enjoyed this game, and I think everyone that I've played it with has really enjoyed the game too.
Yeah, I mean, when this came out, this was one of the more talked about board games that year, so it definitely is really good. It's got an expansion too, which I don't remember if I don't think we've gotten to the table to play.
I tried to play it one time, but it ended up being that most of the people at the table had not played the game before, so I haven't.
That's still on the to-do list, but yeah, it's definitely one that I think last year alone it's probably been played. Besides convention play, it probably got played another half dozen times.
Oh yeah, easily. So yeah, that is Barcelona by Board and Dice.
Game number 23. All right, game number 23. I am going to play the game that embodies the anti-Catan. Yes, I'm not a fan of Catan. But that game is Spirit Island from Greater Than Games. So in Spirit Island, you're taking on the role of a island spirit, and you and your co-players are there to repel the settlers as they try to establish towns and eventually cities on your board. Of course, there are also the local Dahan, the inhabitants, the human inhabitants of the island that have kind of lived in coexistence with you as a spirit. But it's really unique that as you work with your fellow players through this game, it almost always, every time I've played it, it feels, oh no, we're going to lose. And then there's that tipping point moment where everything looks horrible, and then all of a sudden you get, if you're gonna win, you're like the angry spirits have like a round where things get decimated, we cause fear in the settlers. Right. And then it tips back over. And it's one of our favorite games to play as a 2-player together.
Yep.
It was the first game we got to play on our big Henry gaming table. together as a, we chose, we had a list of 10 games. It was the only game
That
either
was
of
the
us had
same.
on the same 10 list. Absolutely brilliant. I love this game a lot.
This
I love the
game
fact
is
it's a
awesome.
co-op. We can ramp up the difficulty
Right,
as,
that's what I was gonna say, yeah.
after we, if we've been playing it a lot, so we make it more challenging. We still haven't beat it at like the top level of difficulty, so.
No, but there's so many different kind of, even in the base game modules that you can add or take away depending on how difficult or complex you want the game to be, that I feel like it's very approachable for anyone that is going to play a co-op game. And I love how we may have our favorite characters, spirits to play, but we don't play them regularly. We mix it up and we try and pick ones that are compatible so that we're not, because we have learned our lesson, we both can't be offensive and succeed. You got to have a little bit of balance, there.
And we have like every spirit that's every expansion, spirits, or a stack of spirits we can pick from is really deep, which gives us extra replayability there as well.
Yeah, and I will say this is one of the games that I do not hesitate if he says, hey, there's expansion content. I'm like, yep, because this game has gotten back to the table time and time again, year after year after year. Like,
we definitely.
This has got staying power.
I would say the one, this isn't necessarily a review, but the one point that I would point out is that other than a couple of select times, we have not played it in an enjoyable fashion as more than a 2-player. It really is a bit of a learning curve for people.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I'm ending up introducing this as a 3 or a 4-player game, it can turn into a real struggle if the third or fourth person isn't really grasping the rules or how things work. And I've seen people get very discouraged by that. So learning it as a 2-player, I think, is a much better experience. And then, like when we played it as a couples with another couple that also had played it, that gameplay as a 4-player was a lot of fun and very enjoyable.
I mean, one of the things that Conesy and I have going for us is that we understand each other's play style a little bit too, and so we can make decisions without a lot of discussion, because you're not supposed to have a lot of discussion in the game.
Right.
If you haven't checked out Spirit Island, it's definitely one you should.
All right. Well,
so
what do you got?
My number 23 is very different. It's Steampunk Rally, published by Roxley Games. So this is one that my daughter and I had picked up at the game store years ago.
Before I was in the picture.
Yep, and we would have a blast playing this, and you got dice rolling, and you're adding cards to your contraption that you are then going to also race around this track. Not the actual cards, but it's got a mechanism where you race around the track to see who wins, and parts fall off your machine, and you gotta repair it, and you gotta figure out what the best way to get so you have the right resources. And there is a version of this game called Steampunk Rally Fusion, which I also own, and is a lot of fun. They're very similar games.
Right.
So I combine them both into just Steampunk Rally.
They're actually, Fusion was actually designed so that you could
you added into it. Yeah.
But it's really slightly, like a slightly newer, slightly kind of retooled, version
Steampunk
of
Rally 2.0 kind of. But so I really enjoy Steampunk Rally.
Yeah, great game. Game number 22. All right, for game number 22, we're going to go deep into the jungles on a lost island in Lost Ruins of Arnak from CGE. So this quasi-deck builder, worker placement, resource management / basically throw all the mechanics at the game and see if it sticks, and it worked really well, is one of my favorite games to play. One of the things with this is a worker placement game is you only ever have 2 workers really, so you never can increase your worker amount. And you're doing a bit of deck building and hand management with your cards, which are multi-use and being able to pay for things like movement or being able to help you gather resources or do additional actions. And then you can, there's 2 different types of cards between the artifacts and the item cards you can acquire. And I love some of the nods to like classic archaeology movies like Indiana Jones, where they have the hat and the revolver and the whip, and also
That's true.
like so you can really feel like you're wanting to play like you're an Indiana Jones character and go after and see if you can get some of those cards, or you can feel like you're going to go after, maybe you want to be Laura Croft in this one or whatever. You can kind of just imagine yourself that way. The expansions all add really good elements to this game that make it even more enjoyable and increase the replayability.
Yeah, my favorite is the one that adds the asymmetric player abilities. That, for me, is kind of a must.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to play without those either.
Especially if you're playing with others who know how to play the game. Mm-hmm. It levels the playing field for me.
And then it has like the base game. The board is two-sided, so you have
That's
two
right.
different maps with two different tracks on them as well, and different like movement costs and things like that. And then as you get expansions, you get additional temple tracks that you can add to the game that can change up the gameplay quite a bit as well.
Right, but it doesn't expand almost everything fits.
I'm waiting for the future expansion that's going to expand the island further, but that isn't out yet.
Right. My number 22 is, we're going even further back in time than, these archaeologists are digging up. We are playing Endless Winter Paleoamericans, published by Fantasia Games. So this one is kind of in that Ice Age, like kind of fantasy. There's different tribes, you're collecting cards, there's just a lot of different locations on the board for action spaces. You're building up and exploring in one area. So lots of ways to earn points and different things to focus on. I like the theme. I like the artwork too on this one. I mean, you think it's going to be all white. There's plenty of color in it too. So
it shares some mechanisms very similar to my pick at this one with Lost Ruins of Arnak, because it has that kind of multi-use card / deck building. I mean, yes, how you acquire them and the different things you can do, actions, make this game very distinct, and I really enjoy this one as well. But I only think I've played it a couple of times.
Yeah, I've played it quite a few more than
you. Yeah, you played it quite a few times.
I definitely enjoy it, and it's always kind of something new, and it feels different enough to me every time I play it that I want to keep getting it out. So that was Endless Winter Paleoamericans.
Game number 21. All right, for my final game in today's countdown, it is going to be a game where you're going to roll a lot of dice a lot of the time, and that is Role Player from Thunderworks Games. This is a classic game from Thunderworks. It is the title that put Thunderworks on the map for me. It made me want to back every Kickstarter, because every Kickstarter they had after this had like promo cards for this, or promo things for this. I had to have it all. You're basically acquiring dice and you're building out your D&D character sheet. So you have strength, dexterity, intelligence, and so on. These scores, and each score you're going to assign 3 dice throughout the game, and you're going to want to match like different color patterns. So there's different colors of dice, but you're also going to want to collect dice that are the right values so that you can get your scores to be in the right ranges. Maybe you need your strength to be between a 14 and a 16, but you need your intelligence to be an 18 exactly. You have to manage that. You have a class, so you need to match. You want dice, you want to collect dice that are your class's color, because you get bonus points for that. There's like lots of different ways you need to get scoring. When you're done, you have this fully equipped like adventure that I just want to go and play like a role-playing game with. So which you absolutely could, or you could literally take it into role player adventures right after this, which I would love to do.
We will do with ours at some point.
Yeah, I think the next time we play through role player adventures, we're going to do that. But yeah, it's such a good game, and I love the way the expansions kind of add some of the things I always felt wanting, because I never got to. I wanted to defeat something with my character. Well, the expansions allow that and add that in. Yeah,
I definitely enjoy the expansions. Are they needed for the game to enjoy it? They're not. They're just that little extra add-on if you're playing it a lot. And there was a period of time where we were playing this, oh my gosh, all the time it seemed, which is unusual for us. It's a really good game. A lot of people that we game with enjoy the game. It's makes sense to, set it up and teach it pretty easily. It does make your brain work with trying to add up everything. We have not, done hey, you can have a piece of pad of paper and write your computations on there and make little notes, but I'm sure at some point someone will.
My brain burning for math on this, and I don't want that because it's not part of the core components. I don't want it. I want
oh my gosh, I did it wrong. I added my math wrong, and now I'm over on this, and that's kind of fun of the game.
It is.
He's too strong or too weak.
Now how do I use one of these things or one of these next dice play misplacements now to fix my mistake? That's part of the game. I think that's a really important part of it.
No, I enjoy it. My number 21 is Nushforge. And I have a hard time pronouncing it. So
it's got that J in there. It makes things very complicated.
Yes, it's published by Lookout Games, and this is one, like we mentioned, is just, it's an older game that we were introduced to. We had it sitting on our looking for players table for quite a while. I don't know why we just never got it out. But then we were introduced to it at one of the gaming meetups here in town, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. It's one of these that in its simplicity, it's just it can be so elegant. I love having the elders that you recruit, and all they ask for giving you this advice and help with your fishing is just to feed them some fish. And so, it's my row of elders. I love having my elders fill up on there, which is not necessarily a winning strategy, but you feed people fish, they're happy. You build boats to get more fish. You do other things to build up your fishing village there.
Yeah, this is another Louis Rosenberg classic game that I feel like gets a little buried in because he's designed so many really good Euros. A lot of times this one gets buried, but I really like the fact that this game moves fairly quickly, even though it's 7 rounds or something like that. It moves fairly quickly, even with a larger player count.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to get in on a game night. It's about a 2-hour window usually to get the game played, which is really nice, unless you have some really bad analysis paralysis at the table.
And you should be kind of thinking what your plan is and what makes sense for you with your resources. So it does limit some of your actions because of what you have. The iconography is very standard, but there's also this one. Ours is in English, and everything is spelled out on the tiles what they do.
Yes.
So there's not a lot of looking this up or questioning. It's very
pretty much right there. Yeah,
and right in front of you. So
I think that's something that's really important. You can get some really clever, crunchy mechanical games, but if everything's kind of right there and not kind of hidden behind iconography, it can make the gameplay for that game so much easier, and this is definitely one that takes advantage of it.
Yep.
Also, one of the things that I love about this game that I don't think I talked about when it showed up on my list before was the fact that there are shares in each player's fishing company, and you can acquire shares of other players' fishing company so that now they have to give you fish when they acquire fish, which is a really cool little mechanism that I think adds to the fun of it. Because that's one of my things that I love doing is seeing how many shares I can snag of other players without losing too many shares to the other players of my own companies.
I always try and get my shares out there and then try and get them back to myself so I don't have to
pay them out. So it's a really interesting, because when you're putting them out there, you're putting them out there so that you can get some money, so that you can spend that money to do other things. It's really clever. I really like that, and it works really well.
It's great. So that is our next set of 10, and next week, what are they going to do?
Well, they're going to smash that like button. They're going to ring that little bell. They're going to leave us a comment letting us know which one of these games they may already have in their collection. And, of course, because you're getting notified, you'll tune in next week for the next 10 as we go into our top 20, finally, of board games. Our top 20 board games of all time.
20 through 11.
20 through 11.
Yep.
We're almost there.
Almost.
All right.
Come along the journey with us.
Yep.
Thanks so much for watching.
And don't forget to
Smash
that like button and also subscribe to our channel.
By the way, here's some other videos that we've done that we think you might be interested in. Till next time, keep rolling those dice.